All right, welcome to another edition of the Journey to Freedom podcast. Hey, I love this podcast because it allows us to spotlight folks in the community who are doing stuff, people in the community who are making life happen, people in the community that are giving back, not just what's given to them, but just being an inspiration in the entire community. And today I have an age-old friend, not that either one of us are old, but I know we're exactly the same age because we graduated high school at the same time at opposing high schools, but we ran on a track club together. We were able to do just, as kids, just learning what life was going to be like, and he ended up journeying to Texas to go to school, and I went to California to go to school, but we both ended up back here in Colorado. And so, Wayne, I'm so excited to have you on the call today, and I don't want to belabor and just talk about a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to talk about trust. We're going to talk about identity. We're going to talk about faith. We're going to talk about health, and more importantly, we'll probably talk about identity. Wayne is an attorney in town. I'm going to let him tell his story, but here's what I do know. I was at we both at this point still continue to coach track. That has been a love of our lives for our entire lives. And so Wayne just got back, and I haven't told you this yet, but I got back from when you went to Arcadia. And some of the team that I coach with, and some of the kids that you coach. And I got back, and the coaches were just telling me how good of a guy you were. Like they didn't know. He's like, that Wayne, I just love him. He's such an amazing guy. I'm like, I've been telling you that for 4 years, because sometimes we have this like club competition where there's different track clubs that are in town, and some of the coaches are worried that what if you take my kid and you coach him a little bit different, or you don't give him the best skills. And Wayne and I have never been about that. It's always been about the kid. It's always been about the athlete, whatever we can do to make that athlete shine the best that he can. And so it was really cool to have those coaches come back and just rave about, I don't know if you picked people up from the airport, you took people to the airport, whatever that you did, they are now Wayne Dayton fans. And so
that is cool.
So that's really cool. So thank you for being on. Thank you for being part of this podcast today. I couldn't wait to do this with you. I even love you got Baton way over there. I need to get an Arnold way sitting in the back of my office and stuff. And so, why don't you kind of just talk about your upbringing, kind of your life and how you got to where you're at right now, and kind of about your family. And we'll just kind of start there, and then we'll just move forward as we get to talk.
My family is several generations from Colorado back in the late 1800s. My father's family went through Oklahoma with the Choctaw Indians. The Trail of Tears from the south to Oklahoma, and then through into Colorado. My mother's family came from Kansas and the Pueblo, and so they were really steeped in the Pueblo tradition. Mom's family, early history, both of her aunts and her mom, my great aunts and my grandmother went to HBCUs back in the early 1900s, and one was an educator, one was a nurse, and one was a podiatrist, and so I grew up steeped in education. My family, they grew up in the Five Points, way back when, and so we were raised as old school Denver.
Okay.
Me and my cousins grew up around City Park Golf Course, went to East High School and enjoyed all of the privileges of the golf course, the park, the museum, the zoo, and everything else that we had. Got bussed around the city and county of Denver, went to multiple schools, got to know everybody in the city. And so it was really I'm learning a different education as to our right to enjoy the America than other places that I've seen as I got older. There was really a lot of things that happened locally and in the state of Colorado that gave us some advantages that other people have not had, as far as education, as far as athletics, as far as being spiritually minded. Denver was a very, very cool place to graduate, to grow up in. I'm finding out. I wouldn't have been the same person I am had I not been elsewhere. Um, Case in point, the neighborhood we grew up in, there are several doctors, lawyers, businessmen. When it comes to identity and that part of this program, it seemed that the neighborhood I grew up in, which was full of just boys and girls, I mean, we probably had 30 deep boys and girls, all really did well for themselves. One of those is my cousin Robert F. Smith, the wealthiest black man in America.
Mm-hmm.
Went from East High School, went on to Cornell, and then went into the software to build a software empire. It's my first cousin. His father was my eldest uncle, who was also an educator, a principal. So our family has been really, really steeped in education, has been steeped in philanthropy and giving back to the community. Yeah, that's how I was raised. I went to University of Texas El Paso, as you know, track scholarship, finished at CU, went to law school at ASU, got my master's of law from DU, and been practicing law now for over 30 years, I think 32, 33 years in Denver, helping people with their finances, trust, estates, civil litigation, some criminal litigation. Don't handle domestic anymore, but really involved in people's families and in their lives. At the same time, the same year I graduated from from law school, I started coaching track. So I've been coaching for as long as I've been practicing law. Currently at Northfield High School, and then I have a private club, Angel Flight Track Club. So always trying to give back to those kids. Like you said, it's all about those kids, trying to give back. I call my coaching is with regard to faith. That's my tithes. That's how I give back. I give back with my time and my treasure every day, pouring into those kids and trying to give back so that they can have some of the knowledge that I've gained over the past 60 years.
I can't believe you just said 60 years because it doesn't seem like, oh my gosh, no, we are not. We are not that old. One thing I just learned about you is that my grandma grew up on the Choctaw Reservation in Oklahoma. So that is really cool to know something over all these years we didn't know about each other, which is really cool.
Wow.
When you think about, we'll just kind of start here with identity. And I love the fact that the people in your community were people that you could see. Because one of the things that becomes a common theme as we're talking is having folks that look like you, that are successful, that are doing well, kind of shapes who we are. And for a lot of kids in our communities, they don't get to see that. How do you think that shaped you? And then how are you trying to make sure that folks get placed or get to see some of that, not only just through you, but through the community?
I had several mentors in my life. Just to put my home life into context, my parents were not together. My father was in and out of prison. So although I was surrounded by a ton of family, and was always driven towards education and success, I did not have that dual income family lifestyle. My mom was a reservationist for United Airlines, which gave us the privilege of traveling around the country and literally around the world. We traveled a lot because of my mom's benefits. But to have a father in the household, when you come into identity, you really got to look at the man who's in the household. Now, I'm not saying my father was a bad man and he was never in the household, because although he was not there, he was always present. He was our first football coach. He was our first track coach. He taught us how to play basketball, box, and all the other things. But was he there constantly and consistently? I can say no. You didn't have that household where you came home to mom and dad all the time. Was he a man about town who was always there with us? Yes. And then, so that's really where that identity plays in the household. Outside of the household, I mean, you really got to look at other people. And then when I talk about my family, whether it's my uncle who was a principal or my aunt who was a principal or my other surrounding families, my cousins of that, that's really where you start seeing, you know what, I can do that. Even with the other friends I had in the neighborhood, whether it was music or science or athletics, they opened the door and opened your mind to doing things that you never really thought that you could do, but you had to do it because you were trying to keep up with the people around you. And then when it came to, always having somebody a generation ahead of you or 2 or 3 generations ahead of you who look like you and who have gone through the same experiences, I've learned that that is imperative, especially for young people. And I know that when I was young, and I'm talking, 20s, I was not talking to people in my 30s and 40s. But as I got into my 30s and I was talking to people in my 40s and 50s, it became very, very clear that that's what I've always needed. So for a Black man, you really need somebody a generation ahead of you and then 2 generations ahead of you to tell you what's going on. And that touches upon a couple of things that, are on your list. That touches upon identity, faith, finances, and health. I mean, if you don't know what's coming, and it is going to come. Some people aren't aware of it because they haven't tapped into how this life cycle works. It will come. I mean, just simply knowing how your young marriage is going to work. Tap into somebody who's 10 years older than you and find out the issues that are going on there. How does this children thing work?
Yes.
I mean, damn, you talk into somebody 10 and 20 years and they tell you, hey man, I went through that and this is what you got to look for and this is how you do it. So that's going into the older ages, but identity as a child, I'd also say in addition to family, friends, loved ones, probably the most impactful was Marcus Walker, track coach, right?
Yep.
Had a passion for running. I always wanted to run. I wanted to hurdle. I go to East High School and there's this dude named Marcus Walker who is a world-class hurdler and probably by far the coolest Black man I've ever met in my life, And he was serving as athletic director, track coach, basketball coach, wore a 70s afro, and just was a cool brother, to everybody. And, you just sort of take a mentor like that, and you're like, that's how I want to be to kids. I want to inspire kids to do what's right. And he wasn't the type of track coach that would yell at you, scream at you, never had profanity coming out of his mouth. It was really, all right, what you gonna do now? It was really self-motivation. Hey, Wayne, if you want this, you got to run this fast and you got to work this hard. So you got to pay to play. Are you going to pay the price? And to have somebody set that out there for you and then to tell you, you can pay the price because I see it in you, right? That's all you need.
Yeah.
That's really all you need is that motivation for somebody to open a door, set out a game plan for you, see you. I see you. And then, you just take it from there. And I think a lot of our kids, they don't have those expectations set. They don't have high expectations set. And there's nobody there to say, hey, if you do this, this, and this, in retrospect, I've done all that. Trust me, it ain't that difficult. But I tell you what, it takes consistent game plan day after day after day. There's going to be some up and downs, but guess what, young man, young girl, you're going to make it.
Yeah. Well, I guess when you start thinking about, and I was going to ask you about athletics and, how in my life, I can think of a couple coaches that made that kind of difference, And I always remember Marcus Walker, conversations I had with, he wasn't my coach, but he still was willing to have those conversations with me and inspire me to greatness and say, you can do this. And, all those things that, sometimes folks in our family don't do because we're so close to them. And then, but just to have those relationships. And I think of like kids today, who are so isolated, who are getting their identity from somebody that they see on the internet, somebody they see on social media, and not realizing that you only see the best of people online, right? You don't see the day-to-day, like you said, the goods and the bads. You just see what they want to put up, which makes you think that every day is a great day. But to be able to see some of these coaches and go, wait a minute, every day isn't a good day. Every day isn't where it says, how do you think athletics played a part in your discipline, in your ability to think about your dreams and achieving and that kind of stuff? How big of a deal was that?
Well, as you know, athletics is real. It's objective. There's no video game there.
Yeah.
It's real life, and I know that there's a terminology now, IRL. I have friends, but they're not IRL. And I'm like, what the heck is that? That's like in real life.
In real life. Wow.
Does that exist? That was a new terminology for me, which was interesting. And so the way I start thinking about track and coaching track, man, it is in real life. It's live. Mm-hmm. From day one. Can you do the warm up? Can you run 2 laps? Oh, you can't run 2 laps. Oh my gosh. Our goal is to just finish warm up. Can you skip? Can you jump? It's real life. It is all about you and your head, your spirituality, everything about you. There is no hiding behind mama, daddy. There's no hiding behind your friends. I see you. I see you in your rarest form, right? And so I think that when you're focusing on that and you're looking at people in real life and you're recognizing them for their skills or their lack thereof, I think that breaks some of that. Mm-hmm. I think it's really like, oh man, this dude really, really sees me. Now, does he value me if I'm not unskilled, right? Mm-hmm. Does he only value me if I'm skilled? Brian, and you've seen me. I laugh at the kids. I'm like, wow, what was that? And we just start laughing. That was the goofiest run I've ever seen. And they just learn to laugh at themselves in real life.
Real life in real time. Wow.
In real time. Well, coach, I'm going to get better. Well, no, I know you're going to get better because I'm going to make you better. And they do. And then you're setting expectations in real life, in real time. So when somebody comes to them with some hype, you're hoping that they look back at those experiences in real life, in real time, whether it's grades or track, because it's all transferable. Mm-hmm. And they have the courage enough to say, that's not me. You don't get to define me by media. They don't even know me.
Yes.
Matter of fact, I really like it for girls because there are studies out there that show that girls athletes are higher achievers when it comes to the workforce because they just don't put up with bullshit. They can be in the boardroom. They can compete. Nobody's going to put anything over them because they're like, come on, man. I know right now I can do more push-ups than you do. I
love it.
I can outthink you. I can outwork you. I can outrun you. And all you've been doing is thinking that you're smart. You're really not that smart. Yeah. And so when you give somebody that kind of confidence, that self-awareness is really what it is. And they know what they can and can't do, and they know what they aspire to. I think that's the only way you get kids out of this social media spin that I see some kids getting into. I don't see, the ones around me, they're not in it.
Yeah.
I see them on there, they'll be playing video games amongst themselves. But when it comes down to the work, it's, that ain't going to help you.
yeah, exactly. Well, I think we're fortunate because we have the kids who are coming out that are doing the work that are, they realize, hey, I would rather be here than sitting at home on a video game, isolated by myself with, with my own thoughts and everything that is there. When I think about trust, I want to pivot over to the trust, because one of the things that is also a common theme is all the things that have happened in our histories, whether it's our Native American histories, where like you said, the Trail of Tears, and all the things that happened there, or the African American history. And sometimes I think we get stuck as Black men into what happened in the past. And we haven't figured out who to trust. Like, where do we show up when we go to the grocery store? How do we trust? When we go to the boardrooms, if we're the only person of color that's in that boardroom, if we go to different areas in our life, and being able to trust people in order to move forward. Because in this world, trust is everything, right? If you don't trust your spouse, if you don't trust the people you're working with, if you don't trust the people that are around you, you don't trust this environment that you're in, you kind of walk around scared. How have you been able to develop trust in your life where, you get to almost start out with trust and not think about all the things that, we get bombarded with as we're growing up and as we're interacting with folks?
That's an interesting question, because I've never thought of it that way.
Okay.
I've never really thought of it. And if I can summarize what you just said, and if I'm wrong, correct me.
Okay.
I think that, to summarize it, the statement was, given the history of America and the history of some of the people in America, whether it's discrimination, racism, or shutting doors on other people, how have you developed a sense of trust that have allowed you to succeed?
Yep.
Okay. That's an interesting question. And that goes back, I think that goes back to identity.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that, you can imagine some of the stuff that Robert sees at the level he is,
Oh my God. Yeah.
He is, $8 billion and, multi 30,000 employees worldwide, and just travels and does all the things. I think one of the things that we were allowed to do as kids was an elimination of that fearfulness.
Okay.
With that fear comes distrust. And there may be anybody watching this and say, oh, wow, maybe he didn't have any fear because he was never the only person in the classroom that was a Black man. Nope, always.
Mm-hmm.
Always. I didn't care.
There we go. I love it.
So, I tell this story to my kids in high school. I was that dude who, from a very young age, and I remember this from junior high school. I went to this junior high school. I went to math, and they put me into this remedial math class that was doing addition and subtraction. And I always sit in front of the classroom. Sort of, was my way of telling the teacher, do your job, teach me.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can imagine this young, what had to be 12-year-old Black dude sitting in front of this remedial class, and this cat hands me a worksheet with addition and subtraction, and I said, I'm not supposed to be in this class. And he said, well, let me see what you do on this. I finished that damn thing in like 5 minutes, and I put it on his desk. I said, I'm not supposed to be in this class.
Wow.
And I stood there and looked at him,
mm-hmm.
and he went through it. He said, all right, Mr. Vane, you need to go to the counselor's office.
I love it.
I ain't that dude.
Mm-hmm.
So they took me out of that, put me in algebra. And, you hear these horror stories of these kids that are thrown into remedial math or remedial reading, and they're going to sleep, and they're sitting in the back going to sleep. And I'm like, that's a freaking waste of time.
Yeah.
So I don't care. I learned I don't care. I don't care who's in front. I don't care who's in back. I'm here to get mine. I don't care what race you are. I could give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
So there was not this fearfulness in walking into new spaces, in walking into a courtroom and seeing the entire courtroom is white. And, you walk up to the bar and the sheriff looks at you like, are you supposed to be here? And you just walk on in and look at him like,
I love it. Yes.
what's your issue?
Mhm.
What
Yeah.
your issue is. So it's also about how you carry yourself. If you think you're not supposed to be there, you ain't supposed to be there. Yeah, I've never done that. I've never asked permission. Yeah.
Love that. Ask for forgiveness, right? You ask for forgiveness.
I've never been denied access.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has said, who are you? Really?
Yeah.
Who are you?
Yeah.
So I think it's about getting that fearfulness out. So I don't have a mistrust.
Okay.
I think that, the way I look at everything coming from the civil rights era to where it is now, I always give people the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
So if you look at the history of civil rights and you look at the people who gave their lives up for Black rights, for anybody rights, and I'm not going to even say the Black rights, I'm going to say the rights of people.
Yeah.
Rights of human beings. That's of all colors.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So when I walk into a room, I'm like, oh, these are cool people.
Yes, I know. I love it
and they're gonna love me. They're gonna love me because I'm just gonna talk to them and we're gonna see, what commonalities we have. I don't give a shit. I don't care.
Yeah. Well, and I see, I just got back from Alabama, and I don't know how many times you've been to Alabama, but it was my first time, this year, and I felt like I was so grateful for growing up here.
Yeah.
Because of the definite segregation that still exists and the definite thought process that goes through folks' mind. And I think of like, where did that come from? Where you're willing to advocate for yourself in every place, that confidence that you just talked about. Hey, I'm going to advocate for myself. I am not supposed to be here, and you're going to do something about that. I don't know if that comes as common or a thought process, but it sounds like because of your associations growing up and the folks that you were around, they probably didn't put up with stuff either. And I think of, how that transforms into every aspect of your life. Because if you start that at 12 years old, developing that confidence, that means at 18, you're really not taking any stuff. And then now you're going to go to law school and they're like, well, how would you deny me from going to law school or getting there? It's not even an issue that goes on. How do we teach that, Wayne? How do we help our young?
It's very simple, Brian. It's very simple. In the diversity of our community, and you know this for a fact, when you grew up and you sit next to somebody that was either white or brown or Asian in your group of friends, you must have learned that there's nothing that they're doing that I can't do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Matter of fact, you probably had an Asian friend or a white friend who you were like, you know what, let me explain this to you because you're not quite getting it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I went to Cherry Creek High School, so there was 35 of us that were in the whole high school out of 3,000. And so
here's where, when you look at the people around you and how America is structured, and you're driving through Parker, Colorado, and you see these $1 million houses and you say, wow, I bet you I can see about 200, $300 million houses. And I bet you in those houses are probably a lot of white families that are just average.
Yeah. You're right. Yes.
There's nothing special about them. It's just a whole bunch of mediocre, average people. And wow, I've known average people my whole life. And so what? Am I supposed to ask for less? Or am I supposed to be getting what it is that I deserve? Or can I at least have an average lifestyle?
Man.
Or, I mean, I guess when you start seeing it, it's like, well, my color's not stopping me from being smart or spiritually enabled. It's not doing anything to my identity. It's not damaging my health. So why couldn't I get the goodness of life as well? And so that's where that fearness comes away from. Because when I walk into a room or a courtroom, I'm like, half of these lawyers, they're just average.
Yes, yes, yes.
And then when you hear him talk, you're like, oh, that dude don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Or that judge, I wonder where they went to law school. And sometimes they'll be like, I went to Harvard. It's like, dude, you're an idiot.
How
So
did you?
I guess it's seeing how the world works,
Hmm.
trying to figure out your place in the world as a black man, and not saying that I'm relegated to lesser than because I'm an African American man. And I say black man because I say that as a world planetary terminology. And if you go to Africa and you see, okay, what does a black man in the world in Ethiopia? What does a successful black man in Ethiopia do? Oh, he owns businesses. He has a
Yeah. Yes.
You're like, well, damn.
Yeah.
This is not about race. What does a wealthy black man in Nigeria do? What does a wealthy black man in Europe do, or England? And it's like, this has nothing to do with my skin color,
Man.
right?
You're right.
It really doesn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah. You were so right. So right. And that's what's hard when you start having conversations and you start going, well, why? You're trying to find out the systemic issues that are there, but I don't even think that's the reason. I've been following a guy who talks about contributing factors versus deciding factors, and we let these contributing factors that have nothing to do with our success hinder us in being able to be successful. you
Yeah.
know you try to start it, especially the older we get. You just go, these people, there's nothing special about, like you said, the folks that are in the $1 million homes, other than maybe just their identity, their beliefs, and the possibility that it happened, compared to where we have another set of folks in our communities that don't believe it can happen.
Well, there can be some barriers.
Yeah.
We know that there's secondary barriers to everything.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I've started businesses after businesses, and then you go into the bank and you're denied a bank loan. But what a lot of people don't see, or you're given the black bank loan.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're going to give you a bank loan, but it's at 10% interest instead of the 5%. And you're like, oh, okay, no, I want the bank loan.
Yeah.
So know that, number one, there's thousands of banks. That bank is not controlling my destiny. There's thousands of banks. So you really got to go in there with that attitude. If my business qualifies, I'm going to find the right loan,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't want the black loan,
Yeah.
right? But there is that barrier. Can I get to that next step? And how do I get there? Because I know that there are some people who will place barriers in front of me, and it is incumbent upon me to figure out how to get around it.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so true, because, like you said, like there are definitely barriers there. To try to deny that there isn't systems that have been put in place, but how do we navigate through those systems? Because we're starting to get more and more to get examples of how to do it. When you talk about education, and identity, how much does education play in our ability to succeed or to have these better lives? Or, I know you went to law school, and just go ahead and just kind of your belief on education.
Education used to be a tremendous barrier, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be PSAT, LSAT, ACT, those were all barriers to getting into school. And I can say that I'm lucky because coming out of CU, I said I want to go to law school. So they said, okay, you have to take the LSAT, the law school exam. And I said, okay, how do you do this? And they were like, well, you need to take the class over here. It costs $1,000,
Mm,
right?
yes.
And I'm like, I don't have $1,000. How am I going to afford that? And they're like, well, if you don't have $1,000, you probably shouldn't go to law school.
Oh my gosh.
This one girl told me,
Wow.
and I was
Wow.
like, wow. So
Okay.
what I did was went and bought the LSAT prep book.
Mhm.
I took the LSAT test. I got a horrible score because the LSAT was literally a puzzle.
Mhm.
It was literally a crossword puzzle along with some trick questions that have nothing to do with being in law school. Nothing, you know. And really, what the LSAT class was about was to teach you what these puzzles were, how to get through these puzzles. And
Mhm.
if you took the Kaplan class, you'd get a good LSAT score because they taught you, they literally gave you the answers.
Yeah, taught you how to take the test. Wow.
So I take the test. They say, based on your LSAT score, you're going to fill out law school. And I kept going. ASU accepted me, gave me scholarship. Went to ASU, graduated from college, went to take the bar, got into a top law firm in Denver. You talk about the easiest test I've ever taken in my life, Brian.
Really?
The
Okay.
bar exam.
The bar exam.
So
Wow.
here's what happened. You get accepted. It was the largest law firm in Colorado. They pay you your salary and they pay for your bar exam and they pay for your prep class. So I got to see behind the scenes. And you go into these prep classes and they'd say, if you encounter a question like this, the answer is number one. If you encounter a question like
Oh my gosh.
this answer, if you encounter, and I was like, this is freaking amazing, Brian. It was amazing. So I studied for that for 2 months, and I smoked the bar exam, and so when you look at how the LSAT was set up and the bar exam, I said, oh, this is all just fiction and fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
It was absolutely ridiculous how easy that test was.
Wow. When you had all the tools in place to be able to take it.
They just they literally just spoon fed you the answers.
Wow. Wow.
And again, the bar had nothing to do with practicing law because after I passed the bar, you don't even know where the courtroom is.
Gotcha.
You don't know how to file a motion. You don't know. So education on some levels was a barrier. Here's what's going on now, which is amazing. Every kid in America that I coach, they've got a freaking computer in their hands.
Yes, they do.
Now, imagine what we would have done in track and field if right now we got Ronaldo Nehemiah's YouTube video showing us how to hurdle.
Oh
Greg Foster's YouTube video.
Yeah.
All the college coaches talking about the things that we can or can't do. How do you get into Harvard? How do you get into Yale? What is college about? Any question in the world, Brian. What does the practice of law look like? What does anything that you're passionate about? How do you play the piano? How do you play the guitar? It's all right here. So when you start talking about being fearful about doing something new, being fearful of new new journeys or new thoughts or ideas, or even access to financing around the world. I mean, the world is literally open now. What is there to be scared of?
Yeah.
What?
It is.
This has no. When you log in, it don't say, "Are you a black man?"
Nope, it does not. If it does know, it ain't asking because it probably has figured it out. Somehow. Oh, you're right.
Oh, well, Master don't want you to know that information.
Exactly.
I think maybe that's why there's book bans now.
Of course.
Because we have access to everything. And they're saying, and maybe the people who are banning books are saying, oh, shit. There was a time when these people weren't supposed to know anything.
Yeah.
The reasons why all the Jews were lawyers was because they were the only ones who were in the industry of doing transactions. They were relegated to what was back then thought of as crap work. So they went to law school and they went into transactions.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we were totally excluded from it. And the only way a young black attorney back in the 50s, 60s, 40s could learn anything was by having a mentor.
Yeah.
So you can just come out of law school and go into tax law. No.
There's no way. Yeah.
Wow. No, so now that we have industry-wide, worldwide access to how things get done, figure it out, get it done.
Oh, I love that you're saying that, because one of the things that I've really been working on, and as I'm doing coaching on the business level, not just on the athletic level, is this transition from knowing to doing. Because I think a lot of us know what to do. We know how to do it. We have access right here to anything we want to know how to do. But now, how do we help people understand, okay, just knowing isn't enough. You got to actually start doing stuff. How do you help the folks that you work with and people you there kind of transition that? Because there's a lot of smart people that know a whole lot of stuff that ain't doing a thing.
They got to take a risk. And I think a lot of people are fearful of taking that first risk. And maybe they don't know how easy it is to incorporate. Go to the Secretary of State's website, file an LLC paperwork, get your EIN number, set up a bank account, get your website, get some cards, and say, you know what, I know HVAC. Mm-hmm. I am now Denver HVAC Services, and I can do HVAC air conditioning for anybody. Set up a company and go.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
And I know that it's usually because they're comfortable in what they're doing. They're probably working for an HVAC company that's paying them a good salary, and the boss is making a ton of money. And they're saying, you know what, I think I'd rather just stay here instead of going out on my own. But, that's a personal choice. Yeah. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, I wish I didn't work under the man, and then you're not doing anything to make sure that you're outside of it. And the thing that gets me lately is anybody who's publishing that I'm the first, I think that's embarrassing to me now, Brian.
Yeah.
I'm the first black HVAC company in Denver. So what?
Great. Super duper. Amazing. Yeah, great for you.
What did that take? Oh, I just set up my business and I took my HVAC skills and started a company. Okay, wow. Was there any barriers to getting into the industry? It's not like black people don't hire HVAC. Oh, and it's not black people. It's not like people don't hire HVAC folks. Are you good at what you do? Yeah. Well,
hello.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're going to get a lot of business.
Yeah.
So, there are millions of different ways to control your destiny. It's really just starting with what you're passionate about, taking that first step. I advise clients daily on how to do that first step, whether it's I'm looking at cars, a tire store, an automobile store, a restaurant, title companies, real estate companies. Go. And the sooner you go, a lot of people don't realize that the sooner they incorporate, that one barrier I told you about financing. Mm-hmm. When I started my law firm, it was interesting because you start learning this when you're young. In my 20s, I started the law firm, and you go to a bank and they say, we don't talk to anybody unless the LLC is more than 2 years old.
Yep. Of course, right? That next barrier, right? You got to wait 2 years before we're going to have a conversation with you.
And that's just the filing. So Imagine with that knowledge, I'm like, well, hell, I'm just going to start a bunch of LLCs.
You got to, because you got to wait 2 years, right? Wow.
It only takes $10. Mm-hmm. So if you're thinking of doing something, at least incorporate now.
At least incorporate it, get started. Wow.
Because 2 years from now, when you start asking for that SBA loan or something, and they ask you, well, how old is your company? And they look on the Secretary of State website, and they're like, oh yeah, it was incorporated in 2024. You're good. And you're like, well, that's such a fallacy. I didn't do shit for 2 years.
It's a hoop, right? Hoop. Yeah. I signed up 2 years ago, and yes, my business has been in business for 2 years.
I've literally done nothing.
Yeah, other than file. One of the things I love to do, as we transition a little bit here, is talking about finances and talking about money. And one of the things that I see in our community is being big consumers, and also this thing like home ownership, and this thing like owning businesses, and this thing like investing is something that either we're just not knowledgeable about because we have access to the information. What's stopping us from finding the right places to invest and finding the right businesses to get into, and even embarking in home ownership as maybe a first step into understanding finances? What's happening?
I see something different in my community. I'm Northeast Denver, Park Hill, Five Points area. It's a different question for my clients and for my family. Because what has happened, and this, is the housing prices in and around the city and county of Denver, in the downtown Denver area, have, tenfold. Mm-hmm. My mom bought her house for $27,000, and now it's worth $500,000. Mm-hmm. Just a basic 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in the middle of, by a city park. So my clients are coming in, Brian, and grandma literally had $2 million worth of real estate and died without an estate plan, a trust, or anything. And so you're having these families that are literally millionaires that are like, we have no freaking clue what to do.
Yeah.
How do we maintain this real estate wealth, and how do we transition it so that there's some reoccurring wealth or legacy for our family? So I set up a lot of trust. Okay. And family trust, we're throwing all of that real estate into family trust and teaching them how that family trust is literally a business that they can grow, that they can leverage, that they can buy other property off of. So my experience isn't with those people who are saying, I don't have anything. It's really those people who have something. And because of the tradition, the redlining, the fact that we weren't getting GI Bills, the fact that we were prohibited from owning property in certain areas. And if we're talking in different areas of the country, I'm sure that their home values aren't like our home values. Mm-hmm. They are probably not having the experiences that my clients in Park Hill and Montbello and Green Valley Ranch are having, where their moms and dads are passing away and leaving them, whole apartment buildings and duplexes. And they're like, oh my gosh, Dad bought this duplex for $50,000 back in the 80s. Yeah. It's worth $1 million. What do I do? So what I'm finding out is we've never participated at that level.
Yes.
So it's incumbent upon us to learn, what do we do with this real estate holding wealth once we have it? And some of the things around that are, it's not investments. It's about how do we manage and maintain, pay taxes, put it in a secure place, put it in an LLC, make sure that there's operating agreements around it, and that our kids know, how do we maintain this property, collect rents, become property managers. That's really where that wealth is going to be, and not just say, hey, we're going to sell it. We're going to sell it, divide it up, and go buy, a Lexus. That's not.
I know. Oh gosh.
Not the answer. But I'm seeing it more and more and more in our community, that families are getting a hold of it and figuring it out. When it comes to investing in the market, of course, that's risky. Real estate has always got to be part of the portfolio. And then the other aspect of it is insurance. Mm-hmm. Our grandparents also were precluded from the insurance market. So it's incumbent upon us to get to our people, our peers, and say, hey, you need $1 million insurance policy.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's better than, it is way better than playing the lottery, because you're going to die.
You got it.
And that insurance policy, that $1 million should be going to your family trust along with your primary real estate. It's going to pay off or pay down the mortgage. Now you got a family homestead and they got, $500,000 to work with. They can go out and buy other property to leverage or pay for other insurance. Then when your wife dies, that other $1 million goes in there. And now you got stuff that will allow you to have that $1 million house in Parker, right?
There you go. There you go. Exactly.
That's how they're sitting up there. Just average people. They got nice real estate holdings. And you're like, how are you able to do that? Granddad, grandma, great granddad, grandma.
Yeah.
They were able to accumulate some wealth and pass it down. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to figure out how to handle that wealth and distribute it down. Right now, we're in that, how do you handle it? And then at a certain point, it's going to be distributed down. Because my grandma didn't have it. My parents didn't have it.
No,
this is probably the first generation that's going to be able to say, all right, here's how you handle it, and here's how you pass it down. Don't mess it up.
Well, and you think now, even though with some of the opportunities that folks have with some of these down payment assistance, is like the Deerfield program, $40,000. They're saying, hey, we're going to give you because you grew up in the red line, or the Metro DPA. People aren't realizing, hey, this can start a family legacy. Where the government is saying, oh, well, I'm waiting for reparations. What do you mean reparations? There's a $40,000 that somebody's going to give you to get into a home. Get it. Do something now. It's so important. There's just, and then setting it up. And I hope that, as you're doing stuff and the workshops that you're doing, that we can get people that are going to see this kind of stuff, because, yes, you can look it up online, but if you don't know the keywords to even look up, right, you're just kind of stuck and floundering around because you're looking up or you're seeing TikTok that, about all this entertainment stuff, and you're not realizing that's not the videos I should be looking at every day. No. I don't care if a dog can spin around or a cat can jump over, the moon or whatever it is. No. I got to really start investing in that type of stuff, right? Gotcha.
Absolutely.
All right, we got about 6 or 7 minutes left, and as we're doing this, I really want to transition to health. I was reading a statistic that said African American men or Black men, the average life expectancy is 73. And throughout all the things, what are we doing, or what can we do? I don't plan on dying in 12 or 13 years, whatever that is, and I'm sure you don't either. We can't stop it, but what are some of the things that we can do to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves?
I think the number one problem in our community is nutrition.
Okay.
Just eat too damn much. We just eat too damn much, and really got to get a hold. And that causes, the high blood pressure, the diabetes, the overweight, the heart attack. We have to, as individuals, figure out what is our caloric intake and how are we working out. I see men doing some incredible things as far as keeping themselves in shape. For me, what I do is before track practice, I jog a mile, do my push-ups and sit-ups. That's really my excuse for going to track practice. The wife's like, oh, you're out there coaching those kids. I'm like, baby, it's either that or I'd be at the gym. I need to do something every day after sitting behind this desk. We've got to be more active. So you have the health. The health piece is basically nutrition and activity. And the worst thing in our community, I think, is probably also going to add to that the alcohol. There was a time where, and I bet you this was amongst your friends, the druggies in our community, the alcoholics that were in our high school, you got to tell the kids, they all died in their 40s.
Yes.
We went to their funerals 20 years ago.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
You can see the impact of that. And then any of the older ones that are dying now, it's usually with regard to being overweight. And then, of course, you have cancer and things of that sort. Of course, there's the disposition to prostate cancer, so making sure that gets checked up. And then also, one of the things that I talked about earlier is communicating with people who are a generation or so ahead of you.
Yeah.
Asking them, what should I expect? I don't feel the same, right? And one of the things that I learned, which in the past 5 years, which was very helpful, is have you gotten a blood test? What are you deficient in?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I don't know. I'm taking all these vitamins. You're taking vitamins and you don't know what you're deficient in?
Yeah.
You need to take a blood test. They will tell you if you're deficient in vitamin D. They'll tell you if you're low in testosterone. They'll tell you if your blood palettes are wrong. And they will customize something for your body. Don't just go out and take a multivitamin and say, I'm cool.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh.
With that knowledge, you're like, what do you mean there might be something specifically wrong with me?
Uh-huh.
Oh, dude, you just don't have any vitamin D. That causes depression.
Yeah.
Which makes you eat too much. Oh, man, I started taking vitamin D and I feel amazing. Now I can go out and work out and I can exercise. Really? It's just because you live in Colorado and you're not getting enough sunlight? Come on, man.
We're like 6 minutes from the sun. How's that not possible? You're right.
This is not difficult. So
Yes.
get a blood test, figure out your deficiencies, and focus on those deficiencies.
Yeah.
And then get your weight down, figure out what you need to do to avoid the high blood pressure, the diabetes, of course, sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Cut out the sugar, cut out the breads. You can have a cheat day. I think we need to adopt a cheat day as our own. Everybody should have a cheat day.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're eating clean. You're drinking water. I don't mean you can't have a bourbon, an old fashioned on the weekend. I don't mean you can't have a cigar on the weekend. But if you're looking for longevity and health, it's pretty simple equation. All the information's out there.
Yeah.
Take a walk, do something.
No, you're so right. This isn't like rocket science. This isn't like you have to go to a school and get a master's in exercise, kinesiology, or anything like that. It's like get your butt up and walk around the block, right, and drink some water. On a daily basis. I've been doing the intermittent fasting. Where I'll go like on Monday, like Sunday night, I don't eat till Tuesday, and then I just do, 8:30 at night, stop eating, and then don't eat again till noon.
Can't do
that,
it. Yep.
Breakfast is the number one meal of the day. That was Kellogg's doing some marketing. There's no scientific in there.
I don't eat till noon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference in how you feel and how you're able to interact. And like you said, when you feel better, you do better, and then you're able to. You're not depressed. You're not. It's just that cycle that continues to go on, and it keeps us alive. And if you have dreams and goals of places you want to go and places you want to be, then those become your passion of why that keep you alive, I think.
That's right.
So, is there anything that you would love to just share that we didn't talk about, that we didn't go through? Any closing thoughts that you have as we wind down this time? This has been so amazing, Wayne, that we were able to get together and spend this hour just talking about how we can improve our lives. But I'd love to hear
one thing that you didn't touch upon was faith.
Okay. Yeah, please.
And one of the things that I found out about faith, whether it was a Christian faith or a Muslim faith or any faith that you have, I am not doubting anybody's faith, a Jewish faith, but I know that for our younger generation who are turned off because of some of the religious principles that are being thrown at them and thrown down their forced into politics, that they're sort of thinking of faith as this whole thing that they don't mess with. And I really want to make sure that men know that calling upon a higher power in some way, shape, or form in prayer and meditation and actually thinking about something greater than themselves, especially when impacting our kids, and talking about praying over our families and blessing our wives and blessing our children, and knowing some of the things that are within those religious doctrine that make you a good man, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with the provisions around love and hope. The concept of hope. Are you giving somebody hope, in faith? And are you truly loving somebody? Those are concepts that, are historical, that we need to know and we need to incorporate in our daily lives and teach to our kids so that we can build stronger communities. And I hate the fact that religion has been infiltrated to the extent it has, and has turned off a lot of people, a lot of men, a lot of black men. But it's really not the faith that I think we're talking about. Is a different kind of faith. It's based in love and kindness, and it's based in the respect for all human beings.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Religion has hijacked this spiritual world that, like you said, calling upon a higher power, calling upon, there's this invisible world that's out there, that functions so well and is designed to be able to help us move through this world. And I think we have, like you said, hijacked it. We've taken it away. We've decided, for whatever reason, in order for God to love you, that you have to do this, this, and this, and in this way.
Oh, yeah.
That's not how God intended it.
Oh, yeah.
And yes, there's got to be a way for us to be able to rekindle that, to bring that back. It's part of our heritage. It's part of who we are. It's part of how God wants it to be. And we need to encourage folks to be able to find it. So thank you for bringing that up. We talk so much and we get through so many, and I forget to sometimes talk about some of the most important aspects of who we are and what we do. So I appreciate you bringing that back. So again, thank you, Wayne, for coming on today. Thank you for being part of this. I hope we get to do some more of it again. I would love to, whatever workshops and broadcast out, anything that you're doing in the community that can edify others, that can bring people more clarity, that can help people move forward in their lives, that we want to invite them to, that we want to get to. I want to have some specific things for Black men that we put together, that we can, say, because it's about the community. It's about us getting together. It's about us being able to share. We try to do so much stuff in isolation and realize, this is not my guide. I love the fact that I have this and I have all the information, but I need other men. I need other people. I need other people that I can look towards, this generation, next generation, and beyond, to be able to do stuff. So
there you go.
Thank you for being part of that. For those of you who are watching another episode of Journey to Freedom, I hope you're watching most of them. Subscribe, hit the button, whatever we do on YouTube, to make sure that it happens. Make sure you do that, what happens, and we'll have some other great episodes for you to be able to participate in. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful, incredible day today.